The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV, series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the Enterprise first season episode, Rogue Planet. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to stick around to the end. We've got some great listener feedback from the end of Star Trek Strange New Worlds first season. You don't want to miss that. Also, I want to tell you that you want to get your very own Secrets of Star Trek t-shirt or mug or phone case. The design is on a bunch of different things by visiting sqpn.com/merch, MERCH. I want to tell you about another show on the network you are sure to enjoy called Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/mysterious.
Or mysterious.fm.
You could do that too. So we're talking about Rogue Planet, this Enterprise episode, first season, the 18th episode of the first season by their production numbers. And Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens?
This week, Captain Archer and the Enterprise come across a rogue planet between star systems, and it's got a ship on it. They go down to investigate and discover the ship is owned by hunters who come to the planet to hunt pigs in space and other exotic life forms. So despite the fact that the hunters are friendly and perfectly reasonable, we know that we're in for a lefty Hollywood anti-hunting theme in this episode. While camping with the hunters, a beautiful woman starts appearing to Captain Archer when he's alone. It turns out she's actually a giant telepathic shape-shifting creature whose native form looks like a giant planarian worm, so she's a big space slug. She says that she needs Archer because he's different than the hunters, and with only 12 minutes left in the show, she reveals that her species is one of those that the hunters are after. The hunters acknowledge that they do hunt this species because it's thrilling to hunt a creature that can read your mind and learn your plans, but they say that the species isn't really intelligent, it just acts on instinct. Rather than figure out that all-important question, Archer decides to take action and thwart the hunters. He can't stop the hunt, but he orders Dr. Phlox to create a chemical that will mask the creatures from the hunters' sensors, making them harder to find. He then gives this to the creatures and leaves. The end.
Yeah.
Yes, the abrupt ending. Wait, how much left do we have of this script I have to write? Oh, yeah. I got to finish that up. So it starts with Archer posing for photos for a Starfleet recruitment poster, which he's very uncomfortable with.
That's just filler, yeah.
Yeah. It was just kind of a funny thing seeing Tucker taking pictures with what had to be a film camera. It was or a very early digital camera. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was a retro camera because of course, yeah.
Yeah, because of course. All right, so they find this rogue planet, and a rogue planet is a planet that's just drifting in space with no sun, no star that it's orbiting around. It's just alone by itself in space.
So they have to explain that to us,
Yep,
like really prominently because, and rogue planets were less well known back when this was made than they are now. But can a rogue planet have an atmosphere and an ecosystem of complex life on it? Okay, so here's where the science stupid comes in this episode. Theoretically, you can have a rogue planet that would have habitable temperatures on the surface. That's possible. It could be heated by internal radioactivity. It could still be cooling off from its formation. So, you could have a habitable zone on the surface in terms of temperature. In this case, they try to explain the habitable zone on the surface, or zones, by saying that there are hot gases venting up from within the planet to create warmth. So, okay, fine, you've got radioactive decay going on in the planet that heats up gases, the gases escape to the surface, and you've got these at least pockets of biosphere on the surface, which they go into. these are basically like geothermal vents that we have here on Earth on the ocean floor.
Right.
And life develops around geothermal vents, and it's even speculated that may have been how life evolved on Earth, was not in tide pools, but around geothermal vents. And they have the same thing here. It's just this planet is not covered by an ocean. So you would expect, just like here on Earth, the life forms in the geothermal vents or around the geothermal vents have adapted, they've evolved for that environment. So they extract chemical energy from the geothermal vents, and they use that to power their cells. You therefore would not have a jungle full of banana leaves that are designed to collect sunlight and are green.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my very next note.
Yeah. So those plants on the surface are designed for photosynthesis, and that's what you don't have on a rogue planet is photosynthesis.
I feel like, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think they tried to paint some of them white to make it look like, no, this isn't photosynthesis. It's some other way that the plants are drawing their energy. But yeah, no, these are standard leaves, very big leaves, but leaves.
And green, although they seem to dump dust on them, or some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like an unnecessary error. Like what they wanted was a world where it's always dark, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yet there's ways you could have done that without just offending the scientific senses. Yeah. Anyway, well, so let's put a pin in that and move on, I guess. But even though that's the title of the episode for some reason, Rogue Planet. We do find out, so Archer and Reed and T'Pol and Hoshi decide to go down to the surface. And we have a little bit of fun repartee between Archer and Reed, who turns out both were Boy Scout Eagle Scouts. Reed says that he earned 28 merit badges, and Archer only earned 26. Just so everyone knows, only 21 are required currently to become an Eagle Scout. But there are 140 of them, and some scouts do earn 140. So it would have been much more impressive if they'd earned, well, more than 28. But, okay.
It's funny that Archer is nonplussed that he was too short. He missed. He had two less.
Yeah. It's a fun little male contest sort of thing that we get going. The whole camping in the woods thing.
And it chews up time.
Yes.
Because we don't get to meet the aliens until 8 minutes into the show.
That's right. So they're wearing these night vision goggle things, which actually are pretty cool. I don't know why they don't wear them all the time when they're in the dark, but
it's the night vision version of Google Glass is what they are.
Yeah. Yes. And the resolution is pretty low, frankly. The night vision goggles we have that the special forces use today are much, much better. Also, they wouldn't need flashlights if they are using night vision, but okay. So they stumble upon this hunting expedition, and they're bad guys because they're played by guest actors who are always bad guys in whatever they are in. So it's clearly we have a viewpoint on hunting here. And we're
although it's more balanced than it could be. It's not a total it's not a screaming anti-hunting at you. It's there, but it's not screaming it.
Yeah.
And actually the hunters are totally reasonable people.
Mm-hmm.
They they acknowledge that we're not going to just kill anything. They say they're after these things called dragons, which are the space pigs.
Mm-hmm.
They're after something called fire wolves. They say that there are higher primates here and that they leave those alone.
Right.
So, and then there's the wraith, which is the giant space slug. And they say that it's not actually intelligent. Presumably, it would be less intelligent than the higher primates, which they leave alone.
Right.
And in investigating in his interactions with the woman, the woman doesn't really seem to. I mean, she doesn't respond as if she's fully sentient.
Yeah.
It's like she's plucking individual things to say out of his head. But it's not like she's displaying a lot of complex thought herself.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I think that's possible that they may not be at the intellectual level of humans or the other human-like people here, but somewhere below, and maybe a little above primate or around there. like Coco the gorilla who does sign language level, maybe. I can see that.
Presumably this would be lower than Coco, but
Yeah.
I mean, based on the Eska, that's the name of the alien race.
Mhm.
The Eska say that it's not really intelligent, so it would presumably be less than Coco.
Yeah.
Coco, by the way, is much less intelligent than she appears because what they would do with her is edit together footage to make it seem like she's much more intelligent than she is. Like Coco had a statement that was released a few years ago about global warming. And it's like, I'm sorry, this animal does not know what global warming is. You've just got it to say these things, and you've stitched them together after repeated attempts.
Right.
Which they admitted they did, but it's just everything about Coco is fraudulent, okay? But it's kind of like a dog, if you had a telepathic dog that could read your mind and pull out individual things to say, and you asked it, why are you doing this? It's like the dog could say, like, I need you.
Yeah.
But then you say, why? And the dog would be able to pull out, you're different.
Yeah.
But not articulate all the hows and whys of why I need you and how you're different and how that's relevant.
Yeah. And be like, dog be able to say, well, I need you. Why? I'm hungry. Feed me.
Walk. Walk. Squirrel.
Ride. Go for a ride.
It's sort of like, Doug in the movie Up, squirrel.
Yeah.
So, so we're told when they meet this hunting expedition that hunting went out of style on Earth 100 years previously. So presumably
all over the Earth, all the billions of people living on Earth,
including the indigenous native tribes and all protein is fake meat, apparently.
Oh, but don't you know that the Vulcans coming for first contact changed the entire world and everybody lived together in peace and harmony?
Yeah. But Reed gets invited to go hunting, and he's eager to go, and even promises Captain, I won't kill anything. And I thought it was funny because in the notes on the Memory Alpha wiki, it says that the way Keating delivers this, Malcolm Reed delivers this promise, sort of implies that, maybe I will and maybe I won't. I promise I won't kill anything.
Yeah, kind of like a kid saying, I'll go down to the lake. I promise I won't get in the water.
Yeah, right.
Tom knows that one, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. I've heard those promises.
Yeah, I took that as this line has to be in here for the Hollywood people. And they've got to come up with some reason other than I want to go on a hunt for Malcolm to want to go. It's like, oh, you snuck up on us with your night technology stuff. I want to see how that works. And it's like, you don't need to go on a hunt to see that.
Exactly.
Right. So they have a camp out, which is we've seen these tents before, by the way. Because they can't beam up and down like we do in all other Star Trek series and have to take a shuttle, they sometimes will spend the night on the surface of a planet. And so we've seen them camping out, which is fun. But while they're camping, Archer is lured into the woods by a female voice calling his name. And I do appreciate the fact that he does later say that was a dumb thing to do. He was under some kind of compulsion to go. Because, wandering away from camp on a strange planet in the dark because you're hearing someone call your name, that's a recipe for never coming back. Let's just put it that way.
I think there's some horror movies that start out with that.
Yes.
Yeah. He's also super determined. I mean, he's being unreasonable, saying, oh, this was real. It was not a dream. And it's like, dude, you were laying down.
Yeah.
You were resting, and then you heard this voice. This could very easily be a dream.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be so determined that, oh, no, I know this was real. Well,
they even call that out. They say, so it's reasonable to think that there's this beautiful woman in a nightgown walking around this rogue planet. And he kind of goes, yeah, you're right. It is.
Well, have you guys ever had the experience of where you're asleep or falling asleep or having a nap, and then you could swear you heard someone call your name? Like, I've had that happen, but there's nobody there. Like, everybody's out or something. For me, everybody's out of the house or whatever. And it's like, no one, no one's there. Like, so it happens.
Fortunately, it hasn't happened since I've been living alone. That would really scare the heck out of me. It's like, why is there someone in my house calling my name?
So anyway, yeah. So he sees the half-naked lady in a diaphanous gown wandering around on an alien planet, and is intrigued, which you would be. And they kind of make fun of him for that. The hunters, like, yeah, I mean, are you having a nice dream there, Captain?
Yeah.
And then point out the tendency to see things in the night for your imagination to run wild, which I guess the Eska probably also evolved on a planet has half the day, that half the day is nighttime, and that they're not adapted for nighttime like humans. And so the night is scarier than the day, because you can imagine a species where that's not the case. So interesting. He does talk to Trip about how he felt like he didn't have any control over his actions, though. So we get that. But they don't really explore that any further. That's kind of just left. And that can be another sign that you're in a dream. Yep. Right. So the hunters take Reed hunting, and he sees a rock. Well, not Reed, but the others see a rock become a slug and call out Wraith, and they go after it, and so that's we finally see one of these things in their natural form. The woman then appears to Archer again and tells him that she needs him, and this is all occurring while the hunter's being attacked by the slug. And so T'Pol gets a great line here, though. She says, "Would you be so determined to find this vision if it were a scantily clad man and not a woman?" Which I think is very logical for her to point out, and kind of funny. Wouldn't make it onto the show today.
Nope.
No, that is a line that wouldn't be in there, unfortunately.
Or if it was there, that would be for a revelation of a sort.
Yes. Yeah, right. Then we get this whole Archer quizzing the hunters on why they hunt here rather than their own world. And for some reason he says, well, the animals here aren't that different from your planet.
Have you been to their planet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, dude, there's a reason people go to Africa to hunt.
Right. Right.
I mean, why Americans and North and South Americans and Europeans go to Africa to hunt? Because they got cool animals there.
Right.
Other people do the reverse. Yeah. So you go where the animals are interesting and different.
Right.
I mean, and you also do hunt on your own planet. You just don't limit yourself to that.
Well, and they do say that this planet is kind of like a wildlife preserve for them for the purpose of hunting, that they've kind of taken over this planet as a place for this purpose, and it's a very exclusive preserve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the waiting list to get in, they say, is like 10 years, and then you're only allowed 4 days on the planet.
Yep.
Right, to preserve the species that you're hunting. We're told that the Wraith, once it finally comes out that they're hunting these creatures, we're told that they used to be much more dangerous. That a lot of the hunters wouldn't come back from the hunt; they'd be killed in the hunt. It kind of reminds me a lot of the Hirogen on Voyager, although less single-mindedly violent toward everything. But yeah, it's another hunter species. Although maybe hunting doesn't define their culture, but the way it did with the Hirogen, I think is the way to put it. But it reminded me of the Bandersnatches in Larry Niven's Known Space. Bandersnatches are single-celled organisms the size of brontosauruses, and they're intelligent, and they let themselves get hunted. There's like a treaty between humans and Bandersnatches that allow them to be hunted, even though they're intelligent, but it's strictly regulated, so it's evenly matched. And if you go on a Bandersnatch hunt, you've basically got a 50% chance of not coming back. Wow. That's fascinating. I've never read that
so
one.
they'll hunt back.
They will, yes.
Yes. Most dangerous game. So now we have the name of the story on the table. Yeah.
We should probably mention what that is. So The Most Dangerous Game is a classic short story from a little more than 100 years ago, around 100 years ago. And it's about a group of people who get marooned on an island that's owned by a count named Zaroff. And Count Zaroff hunts human beings who crash on his island. And he does that because humans are the most dangerous game because they can think. And so as a game animal, humans are more dangerous than anything else. And so it's the most exciting form of hunt for him. And there's a natural comparison here to the wraith creature that is telepathic and can read your mind. Although, if it's true that it really is not intelligent and is just acting on instinct, then it's not actually as dangerous as hunting a human would be.
Right. Yeah, and that plot gets reused over and over again in Hollywood. Everywhere.
Over and over again.
Yeah.
And it also was one of the things that apparently inspired the Zodiac Killer.
Oh, interesting. Not know that.
Yeah. There was a black and white version of the movie of the most dangerous game that the Zodiac apparently saw and patterned some of his activity after.
Oh. So I mentioned that the Eska, the wraith used to be much more dangerous, but the Eska figured out that the wraiths emit a chemical signature when they're afraid, and thus they adapted their sensors to detect that chemical signature. It also made the young, who were more likely to be afraid when hunted, a better target, which is, any hunter knows, is a bad idea to kill all the young and leave only the old creatures. So that's presumably unbalancing the ecosystem.
This is also an interesting idea because there are animals that release fear signals when that they cannot stop when they're scared. Dogs do that. That's why dogs have a gland on their backside that releases a scent when they're afraid, and they cannot stop it. And that's why dogs put their tails between their legs. It's to try to dampen down the scent that's being released, so others will not be as aware they're afraid.
Don't humans sweat when they're afraid? You know, I mean, that's sort of a fear response. So it would seem that's probably similar. So Archer decides the hunting must stop, but T'Pol wonders if they have a right to stop them.
She says we don't have a right to interfere.
Yeah, which is...
And she's correct.
Yeah, this is a prime directive sort of situation, which doesn't exist yet in Starfleet. But
it's not really prime directive. It's a species that's not a part of the Federation.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's a part of the Federation.
Well, again, it doesn't exist at this point, but yeah.
This is an unallied race. This is a planet that they have a claim to. We have no right to come in and stop them from doing what they're doing on this planet.
What if the wraiths were, in fact, sentient creatures on the level of humans and Eska? I mean, would they still have the right to...
Then I would say yes, but look at how Captain Archer doomed an alien race a few episodes ago when you had the two alien races that evolved on the same planet, and he chose sides between them.
Yep. So Archer playing God. He tells Phlox that he wants him to develop a treatment to mask the smell, because all Starfleet's medical science is magic. It's just like, do it, okie doke. And in the meantime, Archer figures out why he recognizes the woman. He remembers a poem that his mother used to recite to him when he was a child and he couldn't sleep. The Song of the Wandering Aengus. And as a child, he created...
which is a real poem by William Butler Yeats.
Yes. It is, as his mom would recite the poem, he created this image of the elusive woman in the poem in his mind. And that's what he's seeing. I'll put a link to the poem in the show notes so that you can check it out. Just the title, "The Song of the Wandering Aengus," doesn't mean anything. My wife, who's a English professor, at one point in her life, tells me that Yeats made up nonsensical titles for his poems that had nothing to do with the content of the poems.
Isn't the Angus in the title a reference to an Irish deity?
I'm not sure it is, but in which case it still doesn't connect with the content of the poem.
So Yeats wrote for Discovery Season 1, apparently.
Oh, yes. For nonsensical titles. So because this occurs so late in the episode, as you mentioned, Jimmy, we have very little drama concerning the application of this masking compound, this scent masking thing.
We never even see it.
Right.
And we don't see it being developed. Phlox just does it off screen. It's given to these creatures off screen. All we see is after the revelation, we have that where the slug lady tells Archer that they're hunting her species. We have a scene where they talk to the hunters, and they don't even say that the slug has told them this. They just are asking about it, and they kind of feel out the hunters. Then we have a scene up on the ship where they have an internal debate about what do we do, and Archer gives the order to make the stuff. And then we come back to the planet, and it's already been given to the slug creatures, and we see a slug creature evading the hunters.
Yeah. And then we have, what's interesting is we don't have a big moralizing speech at the end like we usually get with Star Trek captains. They kind of, Archer and the others are kind of like, oh, it's too bad your hunt didn't go very well. I guess, it's going to be more difficult to hunt these creatures.
Well, and that's actually good that he didn't gloat over them, because if it would harm his own goals, if he's trying to protect these creatures, to tell them what he did.
Right.
Because then that will tell them, oh, so thank you, you're a bunch of space jerks, and now we know what to work on to refine our sensor technology.
Right. But what we get is, it's like, oh, I guess we're bad luck, is what he says for the hunting, and then we get this last encounter between Archer and the slug lady, and thankfully he doesn't kiss her. Like, I thought for a minute there, the first time I watched this, that he was gonna kiss her, and that would just been awful.
Don't kiss the slug. Yeah.
Although Scott Bakula does do this sort of when she transforms into the slug, kind of this ugh, that was gross. He does to give it a little bit of a reaction, which I thought was good. So that was a lot of fun. So last thoughts on this episode, Father Cory?
No, it was an episode. I wrote down a note. This is hunting bad. This is hunting is bad. And of course, being from Montana, we have a lot of hunters around here, and so it's kind of they don't even. Actually, I will say the bad guys, the hunters, are actually portrayed pretty well, all in all, as actual hunters. But
sure.
Yeah, it's not full on demonization of hunters in this episode, but
right.
No.
All right. How about you, Jimmy? Any final thoughts?
Yeah.
Okay. I do want to bring out one thing from the Memory Alpha Wiki that notes from the reference book Beyond the Final Frontier says this is probably the weakest episode of the season. It's not bad so much as anticlimactic, which is kind of an interesting take. And then it suggests that this should have been an episode of Star Trek Voyager because, quote, this has unused Chakotay story written all over it, which I thought was not an inaccurate assessment.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. All right.
It's also the darkest episode ever in the photographic sense. There's just, Star Trek, Voyager gets really dark on screen when they turn off the lights to go to battle. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But here, it's just the whole thing is we're on a night planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I did mention we have some feedback, so let me get to that now. This is feedback on the final episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds first season. And the first feedback comes from the Sage of Rokaseca via YouTube, who writes, I have to confess, I didn't care for this Kirk. Charism is a key quality. Pine's Kirk has that charism, though I acknowledge the writing is less than stellar for him. This Kirk lacks that quality and doesn't make me think of the kind of person that, quote, doesn't like to lose or goes a different way from everyone else. I don't know. I wouldn't mind a recasting for season 2.
I think that I agree that this Kirk didn't show a lot of charisma, but I think it may have been because of the writing of this episode. This was a very serious episode, and it was being handled in a very serious way. And Kirk as a character, Kirk tends, regardless who's playing him, to be charismatic when he gets to smile and pal around and stuff like that. And that was kind of not what this episode was about.
Yeah. If you watch Balance of Terror, the original episode this was based on, he's not the charismatic, smiley, everybody likes me Kirk. That's kind of stereotypical.
But also, this is Strange New Worlds. Pike is the lead, and he's got to stand up head and shoulders above everybody else. I mean, that's just
and I mean, this is again, Kirk's also in a different situation. For most of the episode, he's not on his own ship. He's a captain without a ship at that point, so he's really under the authority of Pike at that point.
Yeah, he's second bananaed. So the next feedback comes from Ryan, who sent us an email, who says, "Okay, I understand giving a new vision to the ship and uniforms. Yes, I'm sure the original series would have looked much more futuristic had they been given modern CGI. I don't mind the new uniforms and some of the reimagined sets, but why did they have to give the movie-era uniforms leather sleeves? The red-maroon uniforms of the TOS movie era are one of the most iconic pieces of Trek, and they use faux leather for sleeves? It would have looked 1,000 times better had the showrunners made an exact one-for-one replica of the original uniforms. You don't have to reimagine every detail, folks. And P.S., I'd totally watch a reboot of TNG with James McAvoy portraying Captain Picard. Just saying."
I have to say, I liked the redoing of the movie era uniforms. They didn't look quite as 1980s bell bottoms and velvet as the movie uniforms did. And I didn't mind the original uniforms, but you can tell part of what their redesign was with the full leather, as he called it, was to kind of match the pattern that's on the sleeves and the shoulders of the uniforms that in Strange New Worlds. That it's you can tell that it's meant to be a continuation from that uniform. So I like the new uniform, newer rethinking of the movie era uniform.
I wonder if it depends a little bit on which is your era. If you're a TOS guy like I grew up with TOS, it's not so much a big a deal. But if the movie era was your era, the TOS movie era, that could be. And
I knew the movies more than I knew TNG, more than I knew TOS, since I'm still kind of learning about it. So
yeah. And then the reboot of TNG with James McAvoy. The reason I think that Ryan brings it up is James McAvoy plays the young Professor X in the X-Men movies. So there's this natural association between Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy. So
because Patrick Stewart also played Professor X.
Yes. To close the loop on that. So very good. And then finally, Edward F. says via YouTube, "Thanks for doing these reviews. I agree with your overall opinions. Question, why was Una essentially sidelined for the season after her power reveal?"
I think this was because they were trying to introduce us. I think it was the first season issue. Una is clearly one of the major characters of the show, but they were trying to introduce us to all of the other main characters, and she just kind of got sidelined. She didn't have a lot to do later in the season. I've seen some criticism of they made her too much like La'an. Yeah. And La'an did things that otherwise would and should have been done by number one. Mm-hmm. And and there's some merit to that criticism. I think the season would have been stronger if they hadn't just done an Una-centric episode early and left it at that. But if they'd done one of the later episodes very Una-centric as well, that would be good, and then had the finale they did. Clearly, Una is going to be more important at the beginning of next season.
Right. Yes, they did leave that thread out there. And I agree with you that La'an kind of sucked up a lot of the screen time that I think otherwise would have gone to Una if they both hadn't been there.
Well, even in the first episode, it's La'an is the acting first officer, because Una is off captured on a alien planet. So
even that first episode, that's true. All right, thank you all for your feedback. It was excellent. We really enjoy your feedback. We want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Diane S., Martin G., Tim D., Sean F., and John C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode. So that's it from us. What did you think of Rogue Planet? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek, or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send us an email to trek@sqpn.com, or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the very first appearance of the Gorn on Star Trek in the original series episode, Arena. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thanks, Tom, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, I went out to the Hazelwood because a fire was in my head.